I mean, originally I started paddle. I was a tennis coach and tennis player. About 15 years ago, I came across to paddle. All the people I was teaching, I was saying the same things over and over again. At the time, there was no English content. So I was like, oh, I'll make some videos, I'll give it for my students. And all of the countries now, they've been watching the content. That really led to the growth of the channel and the education. Honestly, probably my students didn't watch it.
We're a Team GB player.
For 10 years.
You became a GB coach. People still love to play paddle.
It's one of those that the game is growing so much. You can go with your friends and they can be the first time they play it. By the end of that session, you can have a game, you can have fun. There's a very low barrier in terms of technique. It's not like tennis, golf, or things like that where you need a good technique just to be able to play the sport.
Today we have on the Bricks to Riches podcast, Sandy Farquharson, who's from the Padel School. He's a Team GB coach. It's a great honour to have you on the show, Sandy.
Nabil, a pleasure to be here.
And what an honour to play paddle with you right now on that court there, my coach and myself against you and your brother. Yeah. We got a real schooling today, Sandy. I had a wake-up call. I've got a lot of work to get through when I get back home to Manchester.
It's all a journey, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, yeah, you're on the start of that journey and hopefully we've led you in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm going to come more often and play with you and hopefully increase my levels in the game. Yeah. But Sandy, you're a big superstar in the schooling of paddle education. You're the biggest teacher in the UK. What made you go down this route?
I mean, originally I started paddle. I was a tennis coach and tennis player, and I started in Dubai. And about 15 years ago, I came across to paddle, and all the people I was teaching, I was saying the same things over and over again. And at the time, there was no English content. So I was like, oh, I'll make some videos. I'll give it for my students. And honestly, probably my students didn't watch it, but the Swedes who were taking up the sport at the time were watching it. And all of the countries now that really the sport has boomed, has emerged, and they've been watching the content. It's obviously in English, and so there wasn't a lot of that originally around, and that really led to the growth of the channel and the education.
Because you're a very good narrator of teaching paddle, you speak very well and you explain everything very well. That's how I came across you. The Padel School's got a huge following, so has your YouTube channel. So the point I want to ask you, you were a Team GB player, weren't you?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And then you became 10 years, then you became a GB coach, and your brother's a Team GB player. How come UK is worlds miles apart from the rest of the world, like Spain or Argentina in paddle? Why are they so behind?
Well, I mean, Spain and Argentina, the sport really boomed in the 1980s, right? So they've had the sport for so much longer than everyone else. And all of the countries that are emerging, the top of those being Portugal, France, Italy, Brazil, like all these countries that the sport is coming up. The UK, we are behind on number of courts, number of coaches, number of players. So we are catching, but it's just taking a bit longer.
How many years would it take, do you think, to fill that gap?
To Spain? Or
to Spain, globally?
To Spain will be, I think, 15, 20 years, probably, to Spain. To close the gap and to be amongst the Portugal, Italy, those groups, I'd say probably 7, 8, 10 years. But you've got to understand, all of their juniors, they're in junior academies, they're all playing at such a high level. They've got tens of thousands of good juniors, whereas we have a handful around the country.
And the schools don't really play paddle. Like, schools play cricket, football, tennis. I think if schools started at grassroots levels, introduce paddle, then the next generation of people could be really good. What do you think?
Definitely, and I think also at clubs, juniors don't really get a look in. If you think about the club you play at, it's always booked out by adults. The courts are full of adults. Like, the juniors don't even get a chance to get on the court, and that's partly an over demand, right? Like, there's so many people wanting a court, and at the moment there's just not enough good places for players to play.
And also, what about paddle? Doesn't have the money like some other sports like tennis, boxing, football. Do you think if money came into paddle, there's more money involved, there'll be more people wanted to play?
Yeah, I think so, but it's coming. It's gradual, it's building. I remember 8, 9 years ago, there really was nothing in the sport. You know, there was a bit of sponsorship money, but the prize money was next to nothing. And now the prize money is going up. The Premier, has good prize money for those top events. You have a great broadcaster with like Red Bull TV now, and so it's getting great exposure. So it is going in the right direction. It's just taking a bit of time.
But irrespective of that, people still love to play paddle. Paddle's very addictive. Why do you think it's so addictive compared to any other sports?
I think it's one of those that the game is growing so much as a recreational sport, because you can go with your friends
Yes.
and they can be the first time they play it, and by the end of that session you can have a game, you can have fun, you can
Yeah.
start trying to compete and be tactical, and there's a very low barrier in terms of technique.
Yes.
It's not like tennis or other racket sports or
Yeah.
golf or things like that where you need a good technique just to be able to play the sport. You can go
Yes.
out straight away and have a fun game.
Right, interesting, very interesting, Sandy. And also, one thing I've learned today when I played opposite you, that people are quite deluded about paddle. People think they're amazing at paddle, the Playtomic scores, they think, well, let's go, we're a 5, we're a 3. Now, on my Playtomic, you said I was a 3, I'm a 3.5, but realistically, I asked you, what do you think I am? You said I'm a 2.5. So that's an eye-opener. So that means Playtomic is not an accurate figure for people to measure their skill set.
Well, let's take the example of Manchester. In
Yeah.
Manchester, right? So if, say we play and you put yourself at a 3.5 and we play and I win, well, suddenly I say, well, I'm a 4. I should be a 4.
Yeah.
And someone beats me, they should be a 5. But the problem is almost originally yours was not accurate. I think
Yes.
at the beginning it's really difficult because the game grows as a community and
Yeah.
pockets of communities at clubs, and no one really knows the rankings. Like a lot of the coaches and the people giving the ratings haven't seen it worldwide. Often they haven't even seen it UK wide. So
Yes.
so when you give a rating, it's really difficult because what are they comparing it to? You see, and that's where
Yes.
in these emerging countries you often see there's a few years of the ratings being completely,
Yes.
off, basically.
So eventually it'll balance itself out, won't it? Over a
It will
period
do.
of time.
It will do, because
Yeah.
our British players are 6 or 6.5, for
Yes.
example, and the better players in different parts of the country will then play against them and go,
Yeah.
oh, that's what a
Well,
6 or
6.5
6.5 is.
right.
I'm actually a 5
Yes.
as opposed to, a 6 themselves. And so you've got to almost have examples at both ends of the scale so
Yes.
that people can rate themselves properly.
Nice. So do you know, like someone like Tapia or Galan, if you use that Playtonic's rating, what level would they be at?
7.
7.
So that's the top. So the 7 is the top.
You can't
the
go any
top
higher
grade.
than
you
that.
You can't go any 7. If it's the one that goes, up to 7.0.
Yeah.
So they are 7. Yeah.
No, there's that level of players.
Yeah.
Would you say you're a 6?
Yeah. So I would be probably between a 6 and 6.5,
Yeah.
roughly like that.
Okay, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Control and accuracy
Yeah.
is more important than the power shots and winning through power. And the difficulty is when you're at the beginning of your paddle journey, and we're talking about ratings,
Yes.
up till 3, power wins. Like you hit an aggressive smash and it bounces fast
Yeah.
off the glass, it wins because
Yes.
the players don't know how to use the glass.
Yes.
But as you go up in level, everyone's very good with the glass. Like you hit a power shot
Yeah.
against us, we know how to use the
Yeah,
glass.
because you just
so
came to the net and did a drop shot.
it was a nice drop
Yeah.
shot as well. Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's it,
yeah,
right? Like, because
yeah.
we know how to read
Yeah.
the glass. And so as you go up, like precision, control, the spin, all of that is more important, really.
And Joe, we spoke about when I had a match play with you, we did positioning. How important is positioning in paddle? What percentage would you say?
Oh, it's huge. Particularly as you're learning. I think it's 85% of the game. It's the foundations for tactics.
Right.
Everyone says, oh, I want to learn tactics, I need to understand how to win the point. The majority of that is court positioning.
Right.
How can you force your opponents
Yeah.
into difficult positions while at the same time, maintain your good court position?
Right, I'm with you. And considering you're British, and how did you understand paddle so much? Because you've got a great IQ about paddle. Like my IQ, I understand property business, I've been in it all my life. You're a genius when it comes to paddle. How come you've got such a good understanding? Did you go to Spain? Where did you learn it from?
I was incredibly fortunate in that when I started working for the Crown Prince of Dubai. So Sheikh
Wow.
Hamdan, he was my employer at the time. And when I took on the job to be a rackets manager at his facility, I went from being fully tennis to fully paddle overnight, and
Yeah.
there were no tennis courts. So I said, look, I'll take the job if you let me go to Spain and learn from the best players
Yeah.
and coaches. So the very first trip I went with really some of the godfathers of paddle at the time, and I
Yes.
learned so much from the time spent with them. I spent my first week with Bella and Lima, which was
wow.
world number ones at the time. I spent the whole
Yeah.
week with them. I had lunch with them. I was chatting to them off court. I was in
Yeah.
their training sessions. Like, you could never do that now. Like,
Yeah.
the players just aren't as accessible. But
Yes.
back then, I learned so much those first 3 or 4 years, and that really gave me my start to the education into paddle.
So you've got a superb brain when it comes to paddle, great IQ, great knowledge. Not a lot of people do. So if you look at coaches, especially from the northwest of England, Manchester, they go on an online course, they think it's a lucrative business and they're charging £60 an hour who don't have your knowledge. So you've got phenomenal knowledge.
I think it's difficult. I think if
It's
you're
very
going
hard to find a good coach,
to
that's the
learn to
point.
be a good coach in
Yeah.
anything, I think you need time. You need
Yeah.
time and experience within the sport, right? And so, you know, I've now been doing paddle 15 years, and so I think a lot of people are seeing paddle as the next thing,
Yes.
and they think, how can I quickly go from a tennis coach or a squash coach and get a quick qualification and then quickly coach paddle? Because either they see the gap, or because clubs get desperate and they
Yes.
need a coach. You've got good advice, you come
Yeah.
and do it and
Yeah.
do a quick course. And I just think, you know, there aren't really shortcuts, I don't think, to gaining experience.
And also, you teach coaches, don't you?
Yeah.
Where do you teach them? In London?
So initially I wrote the coach education for the
Yeah.
LTA, for the level 2. So we worked with the LTA to develop that qualification, and now I coach coaches through the Padel School Academy. So we have academies in different parts of the world. We have one in Florida, one in Johannesburg, and then one in Maidenhead. And so we work with those coaches to develop their programs. Because I think it comes hand in hand. They need good programs, and they need to be taught how to develop those programs within a paddle setting.
Because some of the best coaches in any particular sport are naturally the best players. If you look at Alex Ferguson, for example, for Manchester United, he was a wonderful coach, but he wasn't the best player.
Yeah, and there's great
Yeah.
examples in
Yeah.
paddle. Like
Yeah.
Ciarilli, who was Bella's coach,
Yeah.
was not a very good player, but
Yes.
he was such an amazing tactician
Yes.
and understood the game so well. And I think also coaching to a high level at different levels, whether it's the pros or whether it being a really good club coach, that's a different set of coaching skills.
Yeah. So paddle's like a game of chess, really, isn't it? You have
It
to-
is really, yeah. All that positioning and
Positioning,
putting people
yeah.
into place.
It's like when I was playing opposite you and your brother. If we gave you a slight angle, you just placed it right in the
Yeah.
on the jackpot in the right
Yeah,
place.
and that's the thing, is when you play against better players, you don't get away with
Yes.
stuff that
Yeah.
you might otherwise.
Okay, and also, what do you think of from the commercial aspect? Paddle courts, like there's 200,000 applications. Speaking the chief planner of Manchester, there's 200,000 planning applications in right now for paddle courts across the northwest of Manchester.
Yeah.
Do you think, in time, across the UK there'll be an oversupply? Because people are thinking right now you can make a lot of money in paddle. So do you think there'll ever be an oversupply?
I've seen similar journeys in different countries.
Like Sweden's one example.
Well, Sweden is a very difficult example, right? Because
Yeah.
Sweden, a lot of people quote Sweden, but weren't actually there watching what was happening. And I remember when they put the first courts in Sweden, and they had it during COVID, and it was one of the only sports that they could play in Sweden. So everyone threw up a court, like any warehouse space they put courts in. They didn't think about cafes or academies or anything
Yeah.
like that, because it was during COVID. It was very unique conditions, and so they very quickly hit an oversupply. It's nowhere near as easy for us to do that in the UK, like planning regulations and
Yeah.
working with councils and everything that goes along with that first of all. But
That the only issue they have with paddle courts is the noise. So in residential areas they don't really allow it unless it's indoor.
a lot of the noise studies I've seen,
Yeah.
most of the noise comes from people shouting and cheering, not the actual hitting of the
Really?
ball. Yeah, because
Yeah.
people are so like engaged and
Yeah.
excited on the court.
Yeah.
There's just
Yeah.
it's the shouting that's the, you know, that's the bit that pushes the noise
Wow.
barrier.
That's
But
what the planning consultant was telling me.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think the danger is like people go and they play with their friends in Spain, they come back and they think, oh, I'm going to invest and build a paddle
Yeah.
club. They're not going to think, what coaches, what programs am I going to run? What off-court things do I need to make this a nice community, make
Yeah.
this a nice environment? They think, oh, this is a business opportunity and I'm going to make my money building paddle clubs. But I think we'll see in the next couple of years, there's going to be quite a few that have overstretched.
Yeah.
They spent too much on leasing a warehouse
Yeah.
and they don't really know what they're doing in terms of running a proper facility.
So do you think there'll be a correction in pricing at the moment to book a paddle court's £50 on average? Do you think with time, when there's more supply, prices will drop?
I think
like
so.
demand and supply, isn't it?
I think we're going to see a really wide landscape. I think we're going to see...
Spain's very cheap to hire a court.
Yeah, super cheap. But they have so many courts.
Yeah.
And also they have the weather, the outdoor courts works. Paddle is an indoor sport in the UK.
Yeah, because it's so cold.
Yeah,
and
cold
rainy.
and the wet.
Yeah.
It's the wet. The balls get wet, the glass gets wet, and then it's impossible to play.
Exactly.
I think we're going to see park courts, schools having courts. We're going to see some tennis clubs having courts, but then we're also going to see really nice indoor facilities. And they're obviously going to be priced different. Like the lease on this place in London, for example, is going to be very different to, you know, a park court in Manchester where they've chucked down a couple of outdoor courts.
I totally agree. Now also, Sandy, there's a lot of hype and trendiness about paddle. Like you've got paddle and Pilates, you've got paddle and dating, paddle and matcha. Why is all this hype? Why is paddle blown up?
There's a lot of paddle and prams or paddle and Pilates. There's lots of alliterations there on the P's. You've almost got to think of a good name, haven't you? I mean, it's just, you know, paddle has grown with the boom in social media, right? So people are kind of jumping on little trends that they can develop, and I think it's great for the sport, right? Because it's exposing the sport, it's building awareness, and you know, I think it's perfect.
A lot of influencers like to go and play paddle, and they're not particularly good. Just take a picture, girls especially, and just put it on the post.
Well, that's it, isn't it? If it works, it's eye-catching.
Yes, exactly. So, do you think social media's done that, taking it to the next level? Or?
I think it's definitely helped. Like that was a big question of why did Spain and Argentina have the sport for 35, 40 years and no other country grew, and suddenly it's grown in these countries. Well, if you look at Sweden, like, the first courts were put in by Jonas Björk, one of their famous tennis players, and then Zlatan, he built his series of clubs, and now you have celebrities of Messi, Ronaldo, David Beckham, like all of these people playing paddle. It's like, it's grown because it's visible on their social media. And
also paddle's quite, like you said, the entry level, anybody can play. A Playtomic level 1 to 7, so you don't have to be particularly good or skilled. And it's a social sport, isn't it?
There's not many sports where you could go with 3 friends and immediately like have a fun game and start, you know, it's almost the equivalent of like, you know, going bowling or top golf or something like that you can almost have fun straight away, and it's you know, it gets addictive. What
do you think of the future of paddle in the UK? Do you think it's going to stay big forever, or do you like you see a lot of vacant tennis courts now? I could drive past empty tennis courts all the time. Do you think paddle will ever be like that, like Sweden, or not? I think tennis, like a lot of tennis clubs are struggling. Like the courts are empty. I can see them converting more and more to paddle. I just think that's the way it's going to go, and a lot of people are talking about saturation in certain areas, but we are so far from saturation in this country. Like with the population size we have and the number of courts we have, we are miles away from that. Even in cities where there are a lot of clubs, take a Manchester or Bristol, we're still a long way off saturation in those places. If you had to coach Galan or Tapia, who are the best players in the world, what would you do differently? How would you improve their game? Because there's not much. How could you improve them? Who's already the best? Because everyone's got a coach, haven't they? So that's very difficult.
As I commentate for Red Bull TV, I'm often watching them, and we're thinking, what can players do against them to possibly compete? And sometimes you watch Tapia and he makes a few mistakes, but actually, if you were to tell him to make less mistakes, you would also limit his creativity. I mean, there's a reason he's called the Mozart of the game. I mean, his creativity on the court is incredible. So I definitely wouldn't want to be up against it, that's for sure.
Nice. And also, you know, like Ronaldo, I was reading up, he loves paddle, and he loves playing with his friends. It's a nice social sport for him. So let's say if he came under your coaching wing, he's a professional, he retires from football tomorrow, and says, Sandy, I'm going to pay you 10 grand a week to stay with me and coach me until you take me to Playtomic level 5, because he's already an actual athlete. Would it be a lot easier for you to coach him because he's already fit? Or does it depend on, again, his IQ, understanding the court? What do you think?
It's definitely easier coaching elite athletes, but it's much, much easier coaching people with rackets backgrounds. Like you see, that makes a huge difference because they're so used to the coordination and the distance control from the middle of their racket to their hand. So to coach a footballer is much more difficult than to coach an ex-tennis player or an ex-squash player, for
or a
example.
badminton player.
Badminton, yeah. Badminton less so, but yeah. I mean, squash and tennis would be the first choice, but I'm sure we'd be able to make Ronaldo
What about
into a
somebody
good player.
who's got good hand-eye coordination like me? I used to play cricket at first team level,
Yeah.
so I've got good hand-eye coordination, so that surely should be easier to coach than a footballer.
Yeah, I mean, the striking sports
Yeah,
often are
yeah.
like,
Like
you know,
baseball, cricket, things like that.
they are easier than
Yeah.
football usually.
Yeah.
But I think Ronaldo's physicality is probably slightly more than yours in
Yeah.
terms of the movement around the court.
Yeah, he's a professional athlete. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But you're nearly there.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Today you said I was a 2.5.
Yeah.
In a year's time, we're going to do another podcast and we're going to have another match play.
Yeah.
And we'll see how much I've increased by.
Yeah, there's the challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
I like to increase. So Sandy, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. It's a real honour to have the #1 paddle coach in the UK and Team GB coach on the Bricks to Riches podcast. And I look forward to hosting you in Manchester very soon.
Nabil, a pleasure to be on the podcast and to be on court.
Thank you. I've learned so much today.
Cheers, thank you.